Alright, so I'm gonna keep posting even though I have no viewers yet. So this is gonna be a fucking video diary for now, I guess, because there's no choice. But I added a camera and I'm working on my streaming stuff and trying to figure it all out. Got some mood lights because I've noticed all the real streamers have the colored LED lights in the background. But I'm gonna respond to a video, I think, about lending and interest or something like that. This was recommended to me. It is someone else responding to someone else's YouTube video, so I'm gonna do a response to a YouTube video, and yeah, fuck it, let's do it. And I'm listening to it at 1.5 speed because YouTube videos take too long to watch if you don't listen to them at 1.5 speed. And if that bothers you, then I don't know, deal with it. Right.
I don't know how you live every day. Somebody must drill a hole in the back of your head to give your brain room to expand and grow every single day because of how bulging and veiny your brain is. It must be the most porous, frictionless surface on the planet because of how many wrinkles your highly intelligent brain is. They just don't have any idea what they're talking about, and it hurts me. So
there's a classic moment from the last time I ever spoke to Dave Rubin, where.
Let's listen to this lefty take. As a reminder, unless somebody literally has a channel specializing in economics, in real life economics, not in Marxism or whatever other dumb shit, don't listen to anything that ever tell you about money. I guess me included. Go fact check anything I say if you want. Typically, when people that are into politics or social issues talk about like how finance or money works, it's usually very cringe, and they don't have any idea what they're talking about.
That is true for economists as well. Like, no one knows what the fuck they're talking about with money, because no one knows how it works. There's too much debate in like actual economics circles and within the study for anyone to think that they have any idea how it works. Like, I fall into the Austrian side, but holy shit, that's not the majority of people who try to study the economy and figure out how it all works. You have Austrians, you have Chicago School, you have Keynesians. I mean, obviously you have Marxists, and they're having their heyday in the colleges right now, but no one knows what they're talking about when it comes to money. No one.
But let's listen to this is like a standard lefty take on money.
The purpose of lending money is so that you may reap what you have not sowed. The purpose of lending money, is for you to profit from the sweat of someone else's effort. That's the essence of lending interest. Because you have no idea, no conception of how you can spend your money to make profit. So you give it to somebody who does in hopes of stealing it. Stealing a share of what you did not create, what you did not invent, what you did not build. That is the essence of why it is evil. Because the person who ought to reap the reward.
Okay, no, I know this is the left-wing guy. We haven't gotten to Destiny's take. I'm curious to see what it'll be. But this is just totally wrong from the get-go. So, no one loans money. I mean, idiots do. People buy bonds in their 401ks because they're dumb. But no one with actual money loans other people money. That's not how it works. People, like private investors who are investing their own money into you, do it for a share of the company. They're venture capitalists. No one does it for an interest rate. If you get a loan at an interest rate, that loan is going to be new money creation. It's either going to come from a commercial bank who just has to have some percentage in reserves. Right now, the amount of reserves that they need is 0%. So right now they could create as much money as they want, and there is no limit to how much they have to actually be holding. But commercial banks get to print money, so they give loans at an interest rate. Then obviously the state loans us money, but they're usually bullshit loans. They're usually like the, whatever it is, the PPE or whatever the stimulus loan was, where it all got forgiven. And usually government loans are basically, if the government loans you money, usually they're giving you the money because that's just the way it is. So, no, rich people don't go around loaning their money out for 8% interest. That's not how it works. If you get a loan for a set interest rate, then it is new money that's being created when you take out the loan. And the interest rate should be higher than it is right now because that constrains how much people are willing to take out those loans. It makes the money more expensive to create, and so it constricts the amount of new money creation. And obviously, if you don't like that your rent is going up and you don't like that houses are worth so much or cost so much, and you don't like how everything is more expensive and your wages don't keep up, then you should want interest rates to go up so that less money gets created in the first place, so that the prices of things don't increase as much. Okay, let's see what Destiny says here.
Words of a good idea was the person who came up with it. The person who ought to reap the rewards of building a profitable item is the person who made it. The guy sitting on his fat ass with a bunch of promissory notes should not become wealthy.
Okay, so let's talk about when do you know whether or not you can take out a loan for money? When is it a good idea to take out a loan for money? So we're gonna focus on so there are different ways to measure what money gives you. I'm gonna work with hard dollars here, okay? So I'm gonna try to earn more money than what I'm losing on a loan. But we could also talk about things like utility as well, which is a much more vague.
I just have to say, look at my setup compared to Destiny's. I'm feeling bad now. I'm way too copycat. I mean, I know the LED lights are pretty standard practice, but having him in the corner of my screen and then me being in the... Oh, I want to see how this looks, actually. Yeah, no, too much. Too much. I got to change this setup up. Looks way too much like Destiny's. But I have cats. You see the cats? Okay. Yeah, that's 2 cats. I just need to get them fixed pretty soon. Okay. Sure. All right.
Concept. Or you could also talk about more amorphous concepts like, I don't know, the strict econ word, but like earning potential. So for instance, I could take out a loan to buy a car that I could use to make more money, even though I'm not technically making money on the car, unless we're like an Uber driver or something, right? Okay, so in our first example, let's say that we run a business, and let's say that we have an idea, okay? We're gonna make an important assumption about that idea. We're gonna make 2 assumptions. We're gonna assume that it's scalable, okay? Meaning that the more we invest, the more money we make, and we're going to assume that it's linear. So as we continue to invest more, we're gonna make the same returns every single time, okay? Now in the real world, not everything scales perfectly. Some stuff scales better, some stuff scales worse, and sometimes your earnings increase or decrease, but we're just gonna make those feel like really basic assumptions, okay? So let's say that we start off with $10,000 in capital. We've scraped together,
Okay, I'm looking at this graph, and this has like nothing to do with the economy. He's just going to talk about like productive loans versus unproductive loans. If you can make more on your loan,
To those dedicated to making an impact in
on
the
money
lives
you
of
borrow,
others.
we've got
then
$10,000.
You're going to pay
Okay,
interest,
we've earned.
then that's a bad loan. I think that's what he's talking about here. Is that all he talks about?
The fact that
in
the
this?
capitalist doesn't do anything, because these questions down here show that there is some work that goes into investing, there is some risk there. But if we're being super charitable, somebody like Mike might say, all that money should come from the government. Oh, really? Should it? Well, then the next question is, well, how do we decide who to loan money to? How does the government make that decision? Is it only, do we vote on it? Is it only socially approved projects? Is it only whatever the politicians at the time support? If we're not allowed to get money, if we're not allowed to raise private capital, we can only do it publicly, how do we decide which projects get funding? In reality, loans are priced with an expectation of how well you're going to perform in your business, risk of failure, etc. That cuts out more of the profit margin you're getting off the loan. No fucking shit, Sherlock fucking dumb fuck Holmes. An actual loan is going to be more complicated than 2 lines on a fucking spreadsheet. Congratulations, dude. I don't know how you live every day. Somebody must drill a fucking hole in the back of your head to give your brain room to expand and grow every single day because of how bulging and vain.
Okay, well, so far, all he's talking about is just that the government shouldn't loan people money, and that some loans are productive and some loans aren't. So he might be a lefty, but he's still like a neo-lib, capitalist lefty. So we're going to agree on this. Okay, well, let's see.
Okay. So let's say that there exists some ultra super safe loan where if I invest in this loan, there is a 100% chance that I will get a 10% appreciation on my money. So in the real world, this would be comparable to like a U.S. Treasury bond. U.S. Treasury bonds pay much, much, much lower interest rates. I'm aware of that. Congratulations, you're very smart. You know that. They pay far less, okay?
Just get back in here, honk.
Okay, good one. However, we're just going to use 10% because it's a nice simple number, okay? So if I'm looking to loan money, the reason why I want to lend money is because I want to beat this 100% chance of getting back 10% of my money. So real quick, so if you play poker, this column here is going to resemble something called like an expected value column, okay? So what does that mean? So if my chance of repayment, I have a 100% chance of getting paid back, and I know that my money is going to appreciate by 10%. This means that how would we calculate our expected return? We would take the amount of money that we're starting with, and we would see how much it's going to appreciate by. So let's say $100, okay? And then let's say that we are going to appreciate it by 10%, so that's 110. This loan exists. Let's say that this loan exists, and let's say that we can do this loan all the time. It always exists, okay? Let's say that somebody comes up to us with a loan, and they say that there is a 50% chance that they're going to pay us back, all right? But if they're going to pay us back, they think that money is going to appreciate 15%, or rather, you're going to charge a 15% initial investment. I'm just losing money. You can't have the person that has a 100% chance of returning the payment paying more for borrowing than the person that has a 90% chance of paying back. But these are just examples. I'm just explaining why all of these would be bad loans. Do you really not understand that? I'm just explaining why. Let's say somebody walks in, and let's say that they have a 90%. There's so much money chasing these investments, right? Why do people invest? No underlying asset. They're very unsecure. They're very risky.
Right.
But like a car or a house, that's a secured debt. You can take back some type of principal because there's an actual underlying asset there, and the interest rates on that reflect that accordingly because it's secured debt. Interest rates are...
Okay, so he's not even responding to the political point that the left-wing kid was making. So the left-wing kid was saying like usury is bad, right? He's a Muslim, or any of the Abrahamic religions, whatever. And so Destiny is deciding to respond to this by like going on and on about just like how loans work, and he's wrong about this because we're not in like a 100% reserve economy. So banks don't like take your deposit money and loan it out to other people. That's not how it works. It'd be like a 100% backed, reserve system. We have a 0% backed reserve system. So it doesn't matter how much money the bank takes in. They can create as much new money as they want right now because the government is trying to increase the velocity on money. And so they have interest rates at 0% and they have zero reserve requirements because they're trying to encourage banks to go lend more money, and they're trying to encourage people to take out more loans. Okay? So left-wing kid says that's evil. Because the lender isn't doing anything to earn the interest, which is fucking retarded take, because if you just give out loans, if the government comes in and says, okay, we're going to give out all the loans for 0%, we see what the government does. We can watch what the government's doing. The government is very explicitly trying to encourage people to take on more debt because they're trying to expand the money supply. They're trying to increase the velocity of money. They want inflation. Okay, this hurts us because that means that the cost of living goes up, the cost of everything goes up, and the value of your wages goes down. The value of your savings goes down. Now, if we went back to like a gold standard and you brought your gold coins to the bank, and the bank took the gold coins and then lent the gold coins out to other people who wanted to start a business, this would make more sense. I mean, I think he's still kind of getting onto something by talking about treasuries. But the reason treasuries are, like, yeah, no one expects the US government to go bankrupt, but the other side to treasuries is it's a requirement that treasuries be the reserve asset of banks. So even though they return nothing, even though the interest rate is 0%, banks have to use it. So it's not because, it's a guaranteed investment. This is not treasuries are not a riskless interest rate, right? Right now, treasuries are a really, really severe negative real interest rate. So if inflation is 8% and treasuries pay 0.01%, then you're losing 8% a year. Does that make sense? So no rational actor in an economy would lend the government money because the government's going to pay you back less in purchasing power than you give them. Okay? I mean, a lot of the loans you can get right now, if you get a mortgage, the bank is guaranteed to get less back in purchasing power than you lend them. We're in negative real rates. We're not in negative nominal rates yet. Europe is in negative nominal rates. So I think all these hypotheticals he's doing are it's not real life anymore. This is like how we would explain this to like 7th graders, but it's not how the economy actually works anymore. No private individuals are loaning their money at fixed interest rates. It'd be too stupid because inflation is so schizophrenic right now. But I don't know. I'll find a different, if anyone ever actually watches this video and can recommend a better video that I'll actually disagree with, then, because I know Destiny is just a hyper left-wing shill, but on this particular issue, I agree with him that the government shouldn't be the lender, even though it in essence already is. I mean, if we started calling Chase Bank and Bank of America government institutions, or we left them as Chase Bank and Bank of America, the Fed is still in charge of who becomes a commercial bank and who gets a seat at the Fed FOMC and who is able to engage in the creation of new money. So, but I don't think there's going to be much to disagree with. And I have to go to sleep, and I have to change the setup because I'm realizing it looks just like his shit. So, yeah, I got to figure something else out. But I don't think I'm going to go much longer on this. It seems like there's
Yeah. So were you flying Delta down there back and forth?
Yeah, that's what I did last time.
You must have status by now, right?
737. Was it? It was a big ass plane. It was one where you have 2 seats on each side and then 4 seats in the middle.
The argument that a program where the government spends money is stimulating the economy.
So let's say you have to read an incredibly long email from your boss that you have to finish before the big meeting starts.
That doesn't mean that they're all created equal. I mean, the government can spend money by cutting taxes for the very rich, and they'll just stuff it in a savings account. Versus if you cut them for people who are going to need that money for their day-to-day living, then they're putting it directly back into local businesses. It's the multiplier effect. So
yeah, kind of multiplier. Although to be fair, saving is important as well. I mean, capital available for people, depending what the savings rate is versus the consumer spending or whatever, right?
But if you only have rich people saving money, it's on paper available to be lent out, but you need people who actually can who are in a position to get a loan and to do something with the money, and you need demand-side stimulus for that.
Yeah, sure. I'm just saying that I could theoretically construct 1 million government programs that increase the velocity of money in the economy, and then create jobs. I could pay a whole bunch of people to walk around outside scrubbing sidewalks with toothbrushes. I could do that, and that would create jobs, and it would spread money to the economy. So I just don't think that on its own. I don't think those two arguments are very compelling to me.
Yeah, but that's like when people say, hey, listen, if we want people to have more money, how about instead of a $15 minimum wage, $150 minimum wage? When you go to these kind of like edge case extreme examples, you're usually ignoring that. They'd be totally out of balance
hold
with
on.
any kind of equilibrium.
I'm not gonna-
So he's
The
got
multiplier that would go further.
Yeah, I would agree with
if
that,
it's
yeah.
targeted to college.
I don't have any problem with making education accessible for people, for everybody. Like, if you can't afford it, like,
No wage earnings growth over the last 40 years in many industries.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. Maybe in the future, or maybe you'll do it.
But do you agree that
No,
what
I
I said is
disagree.
totally different?
No,
from
I
the thing
don't.
you said?
No, we're talking about the same thing. I disagree with what you said. I think that the amount of earnings that you gain as a proportion of how much you spend on your degree, I think that number has held relatively constant over time. That even though
It
degrees
has,
have
but
gotten,
that's not what I'm talking about. No, I think we're not.
No,
in the-
wait,
you are-
wait,
you
okay,
are
here,
right.
look, fuck, I don't want to throw numbers at you because I don't expect you while you're brushing through habits. So here's like a quick graph, okay? So this is like the average amount of years to recoup the cost of a bachelor's degree. This is from 1970 to 2013. So this has to do with how much the degree costs versus how much you're going to earn. This number has like been about constant for like the past 30 years. I know that like on Reddit and everything, people always start like, oh, I'm never gonna be, I can't find a job, I can't pay my degree, blah blah blah. But on average, it seems like it's about as long to pay back your degree as it has been for like the past 30 years. And it's been doing better than before that. Like,
I think the problem with this, I've not seen this graph, but I think the problem with this graph is that anytime you look at the mean, it's going to be extraordinarily impacted by very few areas where you make an astronomical amount of money, like finance. So like as an example, the amount that people in finance make over the last 15 to 20 years has exploded relative to other industries. So if you just put the entire thing on a bridge and say, hey, this is the average, it could be very, very skewed because of just one or two industries.
yeah, of course. But I mean, we have other numbers like median, right? We can look at that as well, right?
Okay, is that what you put up?
I don't know particularly if this is mean or median. I'm sure we could dig into those numbers too, but I don't think that it's like I don't know. We can go search through.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sleep. Okay, I'll respond to the college thing. So Destiny's position on the college thing is fucking retarded. Like, it's just like everything else. All the government statistics lie about the cost of it. They lie about the inflation on it. Everything that the government touches gets exponentially more expensive than anything that the government doesn't touch. So anything where the government's heavily involved, like health insurance, education, housing, all of these things get way more expensive, whereas everything where the government stays the fuck out, like cell phones and consumer electronics and food and any number of other things, where we see less government involvement, the price tends to decrease relative to people's wages. So we have a naturally occurring deflation, and when government comes in and starts distorting the hell out of markets, then they can reverse that. They can turn it into an inflationary market, and that's what's happened to the cost of college. I mean, college has gone up like 1,100% in the last like 30 years, and wages have gone up not nearly that much. There's a graph somewhere about like the true inflation of different things, and you can look up real inflation numbers versus like bullshit government ones, but let's see here before I go to bed. Okay, so here's shadow stats. So yeah, the metric they use to measure inflation in the 1980s, you can see that it tracks with CPIU. It tracks with the official numbers, and then in like 1989 or something, they changed the method of calculating inflation. And so you can see, remember, this is a percentage year over year. So like if in 1986 they said 2%, but it was really 3%, that's 3% that particular year. So when you get up into like 10, 15, when you get to like the last 14 years, you're talking about 10, 12% a year versus the government's claims of like 1 or 2. So this starts to just like skew the hell out of all of these official government numbers. So cost of goods. Let's see if we can find anything. Okay, well, here's a good one. Okay. So let's see where the government is involved and where the government is not involved based on inflation. So healthcare, what do you know? Medical care services, what do you know? College, what do you know? Childcare, I mean, that's ridiculous, but that also is probably, when you look at wages, it's not that far above wages. So new cars, furniture, clothing, cell phones, software, toys, TVs, Food and beverages, I mean, these things are staying relatively similar, if not below, wages. Whereas everything else, all of these, healthcare and college services where the government is really involved, are out of control. Like totally insane. So basically the point is, if you want cheaper college, then we should get government the hell out of it. And if you don't care, you don't care. But Destiny's wrong. This hasn't tracked with wages at all. And I want, there's a list somewhere of real goods. Like individual goods. It shows the price of different things over time. But I don't know. I'm not going to find it tonight. But anyway, you're distorting the market by having the government involved. So if we decide to make college free, and we say everyone can go to college because the government says so, then guess what's going to happen to the cost of those colleges? Like, it's not really free. You're still paying for it with tax money. And now there's really no incentive to make it less expensive or make it more competitive. And we've seen what the schools have done already with the amount of government involvement we already have. And so, fuck that. We don't need any more government involved in education. It obviously doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. I got to change my setup back here. But, yeah, I'm going to bed. I'm just posting this to try to feed the YouTube algorithm. Hopefully the more I record and post, the more little views it'll give me. All right, good night.